All right, it's time to start Oedipus. Couple things before we start. I already mentioned there's some crazy stuff that goes on in this play, and you're going to get it right away in the intro. So today, the first video, we're not going to start reading. We're just going to read the Theban legend. Basically, this is the background that all of the audience members would have going into the play. They would already know this story, this part of the story. Um, and it's borderline appropriate. So just, it's always interesting in class to see how students react to this. Usually you just kind of laugh it off. I'm like, oh, it might be a little different, a little strange, getting this just on your screen, but it is what it is, right? So all I'm going to do is just read the Theban legend, explain what it means, ask some questions in the play posit, and then that'll be good for this video, and that's it. So let's get into it. So the Theban legend, the place called Thebes lay in the central plain of Boeotia. Can I highlight this as I go? No, I can't. That annoys me. What did I just do? Seriously? All right, take two. The place called Thebes lay in the central plain of Boeotia, part of a narrow tongue of land joining the Athenian country to the more northerly mainland. Here, under the guise of the Oracle of Delphi, a city was first founded by Cadmus, son of Agenor, and brother of that Europa whom Zeus courted in the likeness of a bull. Okay, couple things here. First of all, the Oracle. So the Oracle is basically like a prophet, a person. Uh, it gives signs that a prophet can go and read. So the prophet will go to the oracle. The oracle will give that prophet information, and only prophets can read the signs and understand what the gods are trying to tell him, right? And so uh, the prophet will go get the information, bring it back, and tell the people. And sometimes people are skeptical and they're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, but they're always true. So, and then as far as, Europa and Zeus, Zeus, this is Greek mythology, right? And so when it says he courted Europa in the likeness of a bull, he used to, in Greek mythology, he used to change himself into animals and then pursue goddesses is the nicest way to say it. I don't know why he can't just do it in his own shape, but that's what he did. There's numerous stories where this happens. So, Greek mythology. Misfortune befell him even before his city was established. For all the trusty companions who should have been his first citizens were devoured by a fierce dragon which inhabited a neighboring glen. But Cadmus was a match for the dragon, and at one stroke laid him dead. Again, the word of heaven guided him, and he was instructed to sow the dragon's teeth in the ground, prepared for his future city, from which seed there instantly sprang up a tribe of giants so fierce and fully armed that a deadly combat immediately broke out between them. At length, but 5 remained alive, and these, offering their submission to Cadmus, became the founders and fathers of Thebes to be. Okay, a little strange, but this is pretty typical of, you know, Greek mythology type stories. So, he kills a dragon. He's told by Zeus or the gods in whatever way that he's supposed to pluck out the teeth of the dragon, which must have been quite a task to dig those out, and plant them in the ground. And as soon as he did that, these giants sprang up and fought each other until there were 5 left. And then for some reason, when there's 5 left, they're like, hey, we bow down to you and you're our leader. I don't ask. I can't explain. Like, that's Greek mythology. Um, so, okay. So the city of Thebes is created. Cadmus begat Polydorus. Polydorus begat Labdacus. Labdacus begat Laius. Laius and his wife Jocasta. To Laius and his wife Jocasta, a son was born. So what does begat mean? They had a kid. So Cadmus and Polydorus, sorry, Cadmus with his wife had a kid named Polydorus. Polydorus and his wife had a kid named Labdacus. Labdacus and his wife had a kid named Laius, and Laius and Jocasta had a son. But, and here's where it gets weird, so hold on to your hats. Before even a name had been given to this infant, indeed, by some accounts, before he was born, his life was clouded with the presage of disaster. For Apollo's oracle had nothing but ill to foretell of him. He was destined one day, I'm not making this up, I'm just reading the text. Don't judge. He was destined one day to kill his father and to become his own mother's husband. I'm going to go ahead and let that sink in for a second. Now, what's interesting here is this is actually what, so if you've ever heard of the Oedipus complex, this is a real thing. This is a real like therapy, term. This is where it comes from this story. The idea is, and again, this is psychology, okay, not me, but I'm just telling you, you can look it up. The idea is, and this came from Sigmund Freud, that boys had an innate desire to kill their dad and marry their mom. Now, not literally, okay, it's very important you understand it's not literally. What it means is, especially traditionally when Sigmund Freud was around, the guy was the leader of the house. And so as a boy was growing up and getting older and older, he has this desire to kind of take charge more and more. But there's a problem with that. There's already someone in charge. It's the dad. And so that's where a lot of sons and dads, butt heads because they're trying to show their dominance, right? Dad's like, I'm leader of the house. You listen to my rules. The son's growing up going, no, I'm a guy and guys are supposed to lead. And so I want to, be the leader. And so when it says that the guy has this desire to kill his dad, it's to kind of overthrow him, right? Not to literally kill him, but to show that he's in charge more than the other guy. And then as far as the marry the mom thing, this is where it gets really weird. The idea is that your mother is someone who's very nurturing and caring and loving. And there's certain qualities that your mom has that you, without thinking about it, this is all subconscious. Freud was the subconscious guy, right? When you were seeking out a wife, when you were dating people, the ones you were attracted to more, the ones that have qualities that are similar to your mom, because they remind you of the loving caringness that she had when you were a kid. It makes sense. It's not, if you think about it, it's not actually that weird. But when you say, like, oh, kill your dad and marry your mom, yeah, okay, that's weird, right? Obviously. But in the story, this is literal. Okay, this is not psychology. This is not a metaphor. Like, literally, the gods are like, okay, here's your future. You're killing your dad and you're marrying your mom. Why? I Greek mythology. Like when someone says, oh, it's such a Greek tragedy, or so, they're talking about like horrifying, awful things happening, like this. So he was destined to, and okay. There's one more thing I should say here. The gods, the Greek mythology gods, are much different than people think of them sometimes. Like people think of them as these mighty, titans and warriors and battles, and they did that. But they also just messed with people. Like, why the heck would Zeus turn himself into a bull and try to go date someone? Like, that's just, it's just bizarre, right? They would play pranks on each other. They would try to one up each other. They basically acted like a bunch of drunk frat boy children. And so to me, if this is the Oracle, it almost sounds like they're hanging out and they're like, dude, I know what, you know what we should do to that guy? It'd be so hilarious. if we made him kill his dad, yeah, we should totally. And then this guy's like, no, I got one better. What if you married his mom? Oh, like it just sounds like the worst, most horrible idea coming from the most immature, horrible people. But that's kind of how the gods were. And if you think about why would humans create stories about, their gods acting that way, it was the only way that they could explain what was going on around them, because they would be working so hard to harvest their crops and all of a sudden there's a drought, and it's like, why are you doing this to me, gods? I sacrificed all my lamb for you, and I did everything right, and blah blah blah. So all they can imagine was these crazy, like, people up there just messing around, like, oh, he's just messing with us. Right? um, so it kind of all makes sense. I mean, they literally thought that these gods, this wasn't Greek mythology back then. This was religion. They literally thought that these gods were up there doing these things, and that's why things happened. Why did lightning strike my house and burn it down? Because some guy with a lightning rod, Zeus, just threw it at me. Why did he do that? Because he's a doofus. Right? Like, that's kind of the idea. So this fits in with all of that, right? So I think thank you for listening to all that. I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but I think it's important to understand, um, none of this makes sense unless you understand kind of that background. All right. So that's what's supposed to happen. Could any mortal device be proof against God's prediction, right? Like, is there any way to make that not happen? Could any mortal be so presumptuous as to try to thwart it? This is called um, hubris. This is like, even though God's told me this is going to happen, I bet I can outsmart them and make it so that this won't happen. And that's the main lesson here, is that you can't outsmart the gods. If they say it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You can't stop it, which is an interesting lesson. Could any mortal be so presumptuous to try to thwart it? Laius and Jocasta would so presume. Only one way offered any hope, more than hope, certainty. The child should not live. The only way they can make sure that their son is not going to kill Laius and marry Jocasta is if they kill the son. Then it won't happen, right? Easy. The child should not live. They would not indeed take upon themselves the guilt of infanticide, killing a kid, but they would deliver the child to a servant of theirs, a shepherd, with orders to abandon it on the mountainside, its feet cruelly pierced with an iron pin so that it might not even crawl to safety. This to me reeks of those early James Bond movies where the villain would take James Bond, set up this enormous, elaborate trap, right? That's like this chair that's going to over time slowly get lower and lower until it drops him into like a shark tank or something. And so it gives him time to escape. If you want to kill the kid, why don't you just do it? Like, and let's be very clear here, I'm not endorsing this at all. This is horrifying. Right? You're like, Mr. Kramer, we got you on video. Yeah, but I have the original. And so if you try to use that against me, then I will show them the original and you'll be arrested. Anyway, one, but why give it to somebody else to do this prolonged, and then just leave the kid there? Who knows what could happen? What if somebody comes upon it and finds it and takes it away, right? Like, this is such a horrible idea. If you want to get something done, and also incredibly cruel. Like, you're not just gonna kill it quickly, you're going to hammer nails into its feet so it can't move, and we're talking an infant baby, so it can't move until it's eaten. Like, that is the most horrifying thing I could think of. And there's not a lot of other things I could think of that are more horrifying than that. This was done. Now, when it says this was done, it doesn't mean that was done to the kid. It means that they hired someone to do that. But still, the word of Apollo and human compassion prevailed. For the shepherd had not the heart to leave the child to perish. Instead, he entrusted it to a fellow laborer, a Corinthian, uh, shepherd, beseeching him to take it away beyond the borders of Thebes and rear it as its own. Because, of course, he did that. No one's going to, like, here, uh, take this child and pin its feet and you're like walking miles with this kid, baby infant looking at you with big doughy eyes. Wah, wah. And you're like, I can't do it. Of course you can't. I mean, unless you're just a horrible person. So he says, hey, look, buddy. My master commanded me to kill this child. I can't do it. Can you just take it far away from here so, he'll never know that this happened, right? Just take it away. So the Corinthian, who happened to be a servant of Polybus, king of Corinth, in due course brought the child to his royal master, the king, who, being childless, gladly welcomed the infant and adopted it as its own. In fact, he gave him the name Oedipus, which means swollen foot, in commiseration for his painful treatment. Oedipus grew to manhood, the honored prince of Corinth, and the loved foster son of those whom he supposed to be his true parents. Now, this is very important. He grows up thinking that he is the prince of Corinth. He doesn't know that he was actually abandoned and that his real parents tried to kill him, or that his real parents are the king and queen of Thebes. Okay. So Polybus, let's get our names right. We have Polybus, the king of Corinth. His wife is Merope, and they raised Oedipus as their own kid, even though Oedipus's real parents are Laius, his dad, and Jocasta, his mom, who tried to murder him so that he wouldn't kill Laius and marry Jocasta. Got it? Got it. But by chance, he came to hear again from the mouth of Apollo's minister. I don't think it's by chance. I think the gods are planning this, right? The terrible prediction concerning him. Now, he still doesn't know who his real parents are, but he's told that he's going to kill his father and marry his mom. So he thinks that the oracle is telling him that he's going to kill Polybus and marry Merope. So what he does, again, as his parents had done, he sought to give lie to the oracle. He's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave. If I flee the kingdom and never come back here ever again, there's no way I can kill my father and marry my mom. So I'm going to go to a different city where my father and mom are not there. Hey, look, Thebes. That looks like a good place to go. You see where this is going? He fled from Corinth, resolved never again to set eyes on his supposed father and mother as long as they lived. His wanderings brought him to Thebes, where now all was calamity and confusion. King Laius had been killed by an unknown traveler on a lonely road. The city was in the grip of a deadly monster, the Sphinx, who pitted her ferocity against the wits of man, destroying all who failed to answer her cunning riddle, and none could answer it. And you're thinking, wait a second, the king's already dead. Just wait. Be patient, young Skywalker. So let's talk about the Sphinx. So the Sphinx is this giant monster who's basically like, look, I will destroy you and the entire city if no one can answer my riddle. It's a weird way. It's just weird, but okay. He answered the riddle and destroyed her power, and so was received joyfully into Thebes as her king and heir to the house and fortune, a happy man and a wise and resourceful man. So he becomes king, which means that Jocasta is now his queen. So he has officially married his mom. What about his dad? Well, let's continue. and save for one sharp encounter on his journey to Corinth, from Corinth to Thebes, a man of peace. Except for one incident that happened before he got there, and the king had already been killed before he got there. He was a man of peace. Except for one guy that he killed on the... Guess who that was? Yeah. So he married Jocasta, and sons and daughters were born to them. They had many... He and his mom gave birth to many, many, many kids. Good for them. Okay. Don't record that one either. There passed some 15 years of seeming prosperity, but beneath the deceptive surface, a hideous depth of shame and infamy lay concealed. The gods could no longer brook in silence the affront of Oedipus's unwitting sins. And this is hilarious to me, because here they are going, oh, I can't take this anymore. This is absolutely disgusting what he's doing. I can't believe he's married to his mom. Ew. Okay. You're the one who said he had to do that. So what are you complaining about? This is what you wanted, right? Okay. Pestilence and famine brought Thebes once more to the verge of utter extinction. In their despair, her citizens cried for their king, for yet more proofs of his infallible resource, and to their gods, chief among them Apollo, for light and healing in their wretchedness. So a couple things are interesting here. So they're begging Apollo to help them. Apollo was the one that gave the prophecy that Oedipus was going to, marry his mom, kill his dad. And now they're like, Apollo, help us. They don't know, that this is all because of that. But basically, pestilence and famine. So all of a sudden, there's disease everywhere. They can't, the crops are dying, right? It goes into more detail, but basically they're going to starve to death. Like their whole city is going to go extinct. So when that happens, you go to the oracle and you say, okay, you have to help us. What do we have to do in order to make this go away? And of course, the answer is, going to be, you have to take care of this problem. There's a problem with your king and the queen. So take care of it. That's it. So, the whole thing is dramatic irony, right? We know who Oedipus is, married to. We know the story. We know who he killed, but he doesn't. Nobody does in the story except for us and Apollo, apparently. So every time, he says something like, I'm going to find out who killed my father or killed Laius, we know the truth, right? So dramatic irony. Okay, well, listen, if you got through that part, okay, there's one other part in the play that's a little horrifying, but that's pretty much, like, the backdrop is the craziest part of the story. So if you get over that as we read, you'll be okay. The rest of the story is pretty interesting. It's pretty intriguing because of all the dramatic irony. But anyway, sorry this was so long. I was hoping to do a quick intro, but you need all that information to really understand the text. So tomorrow I'll put out a video where we start reading. Okay, thanks.